Due Process, recipient of 6 Mid-Atlantic Emmy Awards.
Vowing to live together in love. What we have here is something which apparently terrifies a lot of Americans.
But can unions like these become legal? This Morris County couple is suing for the right to marry after 27 years and 2 kids together. Gay marriage, the legal and moral arguments for and against, on this edition of Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process is made possible by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law. Additional funding is provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual.
Equal rights for gays in employment, housing, education, even adoption. It's the law here in New Jersey. But marriage, well, that's something else. There is no state that allows gays to wed. But depending on the outcome of a groundbreaking lawsuit, New Jersey could become the first. It's a volatile subject with passionate arguments on both sides, as we'll see here in our studio. But first, here's Sandy King with the faces behind the court papers.
And Raymond, there are 14 faces behind that lawsuit, 7 gay couples who've sued for the right to marry. They're male and female, black and white, older and younger, parents and not. But all of them claiming that the Equal Protection Clause of the state constitution means they should have equal access to marriage.
We have come here today to say the love between 2 women and the love between 2 men is sacred.
A Sunday in June, the traditional time for weddings, and 50 decidedly non-traditional brides and grooms taking vows.
Vowing to live together in love.
Vows that have no weight in law.
What we have here is something which apparently terrifies a lot of Americans. And I hope people will look closely and see that gay marriage is not nearly as scary as it has been made out to be.
Still, these are not the vows that this couple wants to take.
I think we're waiting for the real thing. We don't really, we don't want anything less, really.
And Maureen and Cindy say they've been waiting for 27 years, through high school and Montclair State College, through decades of a life together, and for the last 9 years, through a serious, single-minded motherhood.
We're going to make meatballs just the way Grandma Jo made them. Do an egg, don't get eggshell in. Grandma Jo always said don't get eggshell in. The children are loved, are cherished. They are our joys. I go to kiss them at night in bed, and I count my blessings for the family that I have, for the love in this house. Sarah, throw a little more breadcrumbs in for Mama, honey. You go, girl.
Maureen gave birth to Sarah.
I won this at the carnival.
What's his name?
Orange juice
Orange Juice
is his name.
Cindy was birth mother to Josh.
Did you guys decide on what macaroni you want tonight? Watch the pan, it's hot.
I say rotelli.
You say rotelli, Sarah? Rotelli good for you?
And each child was adopted by the non-birthing mother.
We went through all of the things that we could to protect the children legally. The marriage license would have brought instantaneously.
So the children are legally related to both mothers, and
they are legally related to each other, and Maureen and I are not legally related to each other.
And that's why Maureen and Cindy are among the 14 plaintiffs in a suit designed to make New Jersey the first state in the union to legalize same-sex marriage.
At 10:15 this morning, on behalf of 7 lesbian and gay couples, Lambda Legal filed a lawsuit seeking to bring an end to discrimination in marriage in the state of New Jersey.
And for these two, it's just one more bout in a lifelong battle for acknowledgement and acceptance.
Killian Mennigan and Joshua Killian Mennigan, our children.
Acceptance first from their families, a fight they ultimately won.
We worked at it with them. They worked at it with us.
I have a big family, so some members of the family, and Cindy's family too, came around sooner than others. But over a course of years, you know, everybody in their own good time.
And then, from their church, a fight they finally had to give up on.
We tried
to stay, but when we realized the lifelong dream that we had of having children, they were very reluctant to acknowledge and accept the family. They were not willing to provide an open baptism the way the other children are baptized.
And so they left the Catholic Church and joined the Episcopal, where they've been
Embraced as a family, we are embraced as a couple.
It's just one example of what a middle American suburban family this is, gender aside.
We like to entertain and cook, and we like to stay at home.
We like to cook.
Boring people.
From involvement in the PTA.
We spoke to the school ahead of time to make sure that they knew who we were, that we were going to be active parents.
To baking chocolate chip cookies for Graham.
Tomorrow we're going to Thomas River to visit Cindy's grandmother, who is great-grandma to Josh and Sarah.
We are tax-paying, coupon-cutting, pathmark shopping, grass-cutting. We are we're class moms, soccer coaches. We're just like everybody else, but we just don't have the same rights and protections that the straight couples have, and we're saying, it's time.
The couples in the lawsuit clearly chosen with care, as was the venue. Lambda Legal saw New Jersey as a state that's been relatively friendly to gays, in its laws, in its courts, and even in its political leaders. But while Governor McGreevy's been supportive of gay rights, even favoring some form of gay civil union, he stopped short of gay marriage.
And polls show that most Americans agree with the governor. But it's the courts, and probably the state Supreme Court, which will ultimately say yes or no. And we'll hear the arguments for and against from a leader of the gay rights group that filed the lawsuit, from an assemblyman in staunch opposition, and from one of his colleagues who may be about to offer another way. So stay with us.
I think that same-sex couples should do whatever they want to do in private. And it's not my opinion that marriage is appropriate. It's my opinion for same-sex couples.
I think if they want to be together, then they should be together.
Married legally?
Married legally if they want to be.
It's a free world. You know, everybody's entitled to their own. And, you know, times are changing. It's not like back in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, you know, it's an opportunity for all of us to enjoy each other.
What I want with you? You're a lady, I'm a lady. Why I need you? No, I don't know.
If a state legalizes it, and I guess it's up to the state legislature to legalize it, then they do all the rights.
I know a gay couple who are raising 4 children that they adopted that were crack babies, and they're doing a great job with them and things. I think that the state should recognize same-sex marriages. If the people are willing to make the same commitment as regular heterosexual couples are, I don't see that there should be a problem. And I think they should be offered the same type of benefits as the rest of society is.
But will New Jersey's courts, and ultimately its highest court, agree? Adam Aronson of Lambda Legal hopes the answer is yes. Assemblyman and lawyer Michael Patrick Carroll says that would be a sad day for New Jersey and the institution of marriage. And with us from Newark, another Assembly member and attorney, John McKeon, the mayor of West Orange, who's about to sponsor what some are seeing as another less politically volatile way. Welcome to you all. Senator Carroll, let me start with you. September 8th, 2002, the New York Times, you know the page where they have the weddings, for the first time showed a wedding of a gay couple as its featured couple. The New York Times is not only the paper of record, but in some ways the arbiter of tastes and morals. Has the center of gravity of this society passed your position by, in the sense that it's willing to treat in an equal way a gay marriage in the pages of the New York Times?
Only a New Jersey person could think that the New York Times was the center of anything. The simple fact of the matter, I know that. The fact of the matter is that the New York Times has always been out sort of on the left fringe.
But this is not an underground paper. This is a pretty mainstream organ.
Well, I mean, again, it's a sort of a left-wing, politically correct entity. You know, it's now going off on single-sex golf clubs, for crying out loud. The simple fact of the matter here is I think the one gentleman in your Man on the Street interview said it correctly. It's up to the legislature to do this sort of thing. If the legislature at some point or another adopts a provision that says that this shall be the law of the state of New Jersey, then so be it.
All right, that begs one question then. If and when this matter is before the legislature, how would you vote?
Oh, no. I would vote no. I don't see that there's any societal benefit in granting the same rights to a gay couple as there are to a heterosexual. What does society get back?
Adam, that's a good question for you. What does society get as a benefit from recognizing gay marriage?
Society gets quite a lot, actually, Ray. And what we're talking about here is one of life's most fundamental civil rights. That's something that's been recognized by the United States Supreme Court as well as New Jersey Supreme Court. Same-sex couples face all of the same struggles in their lives as families with their children as all other families. They pay the same taxes as all other families. Why don't they get the same rights? We're talking about very significant rights here, too. I mean, when you look at the impact of the September 11th attacks on those thousands of families who were affected by it, lesbian and gay survivors were affected no less so than all other survivors, and yet they didn't have access to the same protections, that safety net that we all pay into. We all see it, that deduction on our pay stub every 2 weeks when we get our paycheck to show that we're paying a lot. But why don't we get the same benefits? It's not fair. It's about fundamental rights here.
Let me ask you to address a viewer who might say, you know, I agree about the rights point of view, that gay couples should get the same rights, but I agree with the Assemblyman that it ought to be done through the legislative process. Why are you in the courts rather than the legislature?
The reason that we are appropriately in the courts here is because we're talking about fundamental civil rights. It isn't up to the legislature to decide to deprive an entire class of people of one of life's most fundamental civil rights and protections. The courts are here precisely for that reason, to protect our civil rights, to make sure that prejudice cannot be the basis for depriving people of their civil rights and their civil liberties. And to just address one other point, the issue of what does society get back? Well, marriage involves not just rights and privileges and benefits, but responsibilities as well. And those responsibilities that same-sex couples want to take on are good for society. Those are responsibilities that involve them paying for each other.
Let me go back to the Assemblyman for just a minute. It seems to me, and you're a lawyer as well as a legislator, that this really hangs on a very narrow strand, because it seems a gay man and a gay woman could marry. They could say we're gay and get married under the laws of New Jersey.
Doesn't ask that question.
So it's the only, so that what is it that you think justifies, given our commitment to equal protection, saying that this category of human beings, because they are gay and of the same sex, cannot get the benefits of marriage?
Well, it's the same. First of all, the Equal Protection Clause of the New Jersey Constitution is an interesting concept because those words don't appear in the New Jersey Constitution. It doesn't exist. To be honest with you, I would predict that our New Jersey Supreme Court, which has routinely engaged in creative constitutionalism, probably will agree with them, because they don't let the language or the history of the Constitution stand in the way.
So your prediction is that...
Oh, absolutely. They've ignored the law in every other aspect of life. Why not here? But specifically focusing on your question, why shouldn't this be permitted? Again, I don't see any societal benefit from it. I think an interesting point that he brought up is that the legislature can't deny civil rights. The legislature creates civil rights, for crying out loud. It's statutory. It's not, there's no constitutional right. I mean, can you imagine the framers of this Constitution in 1947 thinking for an instant that what they were doing was protecting the right of a man to marry a man? I mean, the idea is ludicrous. And the simple fact of the matter is, again, getting back to the situation of, or the question of what does society get back? When society allows a man and a woman to marry, it assumes that they have the ability to produce children. Doesn't ask that question, but assumes. And the fact of the matter is that there is no formula, no platform better for the protection of, or for the creation of a statute, for the rearing and bearing of natural children than the natural family.
I want to get back to the question of children, but I've got to make sure that Assemblyman McKeon joins us. Assemblyman, you've proposed an idea that is, if not smack dab in the middle, certainly a different idea that might be protective, and that's the idea of a civil union. What is that about? What is a civil union as opposed to a marriage?
Well, a domestic partnership, if you will, but I really have to answer, and I feel compelled to, what societal benefit there is relative to gay or lesbian unions, if you will. And my bill isn't about that, but at the end of the day, I see as a parent myself, parents who are gay and who are lesbians, and they are tremendous parents. They participate in the community. They are wonderful for those children. So relative to someone's ability to be a great parent and then backing that out, a great partner in a marriage, I think that's, the proof is, happens every day, day in, day out, relative to persons who are gay or lesbians who have adopted children who's permitted in our state of New Jersey. Now, relative to my proposal, which I believe will be supported by a majority of the Democrats and hopefully some open-minded Republicans, will be domestic partnership. And that won't be just inclusive of gay or lesbians, but two adult siblings who might reside together, and a parent and an adult child.
Will it give them essentially all of the protections that they would get from a marriage as we now know it?
Well, it would be a modified version of all of those protections, if you will. It would involve giving them the opportunity to make medical decisions on the other's behalf. It would give them the opportunity to have a waiver of inheritance tax, if you will, which can be devastating for a couple that's been together in the long term when the other predeceases. It would give the
give them insurance coverage?
It would certainly give the state right, and I understand the governor is committed for the state employee benefit program to allow the domestic partners to have that protection. It would be permissive relative to the private employers in New Jersey, many of which already, for example, the St. Barnabas medical system, already recognize domestic partnerships in permitting family coverage.
How do you respond to one criticism that's been suggested, which is that the governor and the Democratic Party believe there should be gay marriage, but are using this as a compromise because they're not willing to take the political hit, given the broad opposition to the idea of gay marriage?
Well, you know, I've been in the legislature for a year now, and sometimes it's like making a chocolate chip cookie. Some like more chocolate, some like walnuts, and it's a matter of compromise and going together what will ultimately be the law. And it's a matter of taking everybody's interest in the legislature into consideration so we can come up with something that will pass, as opposed to just taking a principled stand which won't result in any societal change, which we're all striving toward.
I'm glad we had a chance for the Assemblyman to explain his civil union or domestic partnership concept. In Vermont, the state Supreme Court essentially said to the legislature, we direct that you find a solution, and what evolved was something similar to what he's proposing. What's wrong with that as a solution, and do you think that might happen here in New Jersey?
Well, first of all, Lambda Legal's motto on this issue is all roads to justice. We fully and strongly support domestic partnership as one road to justice. But it's not an either-or kind of thing. Domestic partnership is not something that would just be good for lesbian and gay couples. It would be good for heterosexual couples in many contexts as well, who for whatever reason do not want to get married. Both programs should move forward.
If Assemblyman McKeon is right, and he gets his bill through the legislature in the next 3 weeks, would you be satisfied, or would you maintain this litigation?
Absolutely, we would continue to maintain the litigation, because it is not by itself enough. We want full equality, and anything short of marriage is not full equality. We want nothing more than full equality.
Let me ask you
simply full equality.
A pragmatic,
not special
crude
rights,
political question.
Just equal rights.
Does that position expose those who would seek to be your allies but don't want to lose at the polls to a difficult choice? Those who would say, yeah, I want you to have the rights, but I don't want to have to fight the ultimate battle of marriage for gays.
I think it's much more difficult for a politician to explain how they can support equality, fairness, and justice for all people, and not support the right of same-sex couples to marry. And by the way, no matter how many protections and benefits go with a civil union or a domestic partnership, whatever you want to call it, it can never be quite the same as marriage. That's the reality.
I got to come back to something you said before. I've got two great kids, Chad and Elena, and now I've remarried just a couple of months ago. And no one asked my prospective wife and I whether we could have children, whether we wanted to have children, whether we liked children. I mean, there was no test, no examination. So the concept that you advanced earlier, that marriage has at its essence a requirement that it be there either to procreate or protect protect children strikes me as introducing into the process something that isn't there now legally. A heterosexual couple can marry without any thought of children.
Well, the answer to the question is as a legal matter, you're correct. As an administrative convenience, you might be a free rider. But the simple fact of the matter is that you have the ability to, and God works in strange ways. You may be surprised. But the simple fact of the matter, I want to come back to something.
Is that a prediction like the one about
God, no.
Okay.
One of the things I would like to say, though, is that I think the counselor makes a good point, is that if you believe principally that gay marriage is the way you should do, then you should be willing to take the political hit. If you don't have the courage of your convictions, then what are you doing in office? I mean, you should be willing to take that political hit because, after all, you want principled people to serve you.
But can I jump in here?
Certainly.
Can I? But that's not fair. Relative to, for example, with gun control, if I had my personal way, I'd put every gun in a bin and would melt it down. So you can't always impose your own personal principles, but rather you need to compromise with those that you serve with to come up with something that is going to be practical and will best serve everyone's interest. So to say that individuals that may vote for this are against principles who might in earnest believe in gay marriage, that's disingenuous. This is about the legislative process and coming up with something that makes sense that everyone can live with.
Let me focus on the consequence. I've known you for some time, and you're one of the brightest public servants in New Jersey, if not the United States.
Thank you.
Even though I don't always agree with you. In fact, almost never do, to tell you the truth. But here's the question. What are the bad consequences? Not much. What are the bad consequences that you think would flow, in practical terms, if the Supreme Court says gay marriage is here?
Well, first of all, from the perspective of the law, of course, I think, again, you have another abuse of the Constitution, which is to say the people who wrote it didn't intend this particular view, and therefore, once again, we have a court making law as opposed to interpreting it. It'll cost a lot of money.
But that's a good lawyer conversation for us. I'm asking how it undermines, in your view, the fabric of society. What's the bad thing that happened?
With the fabric of society. I mean, that's an interesting question, moral. I mean, it's, as a practical matter, I think that the society over the course of many years has recognized a very specific special right. I think counsel was right. This is a special right, which we endow
Excuse me, I did not say that it was a special right. I said we were seeking equal rights.
What I'm saying is marriage is, by definition, a special right. It is not available to me and my mom. It is not available to me and my sister. It is not available to me and my first cousin.
We have some very specific reasons why, because there's some evidence that genetically problems flow from letting you marry your sister.
Which gets us back to the point of having children. There's society's underlying rationale. It says children are anticipated in a marriage, even if they don't always result. And the fact of the matter is that we don't allow that precisely for the reason that children may result.
All right, Adam, let me ask you an unfair question. Do you think if the state Supreme Court goes your way, that Assemblyman Carroll or his allies are likely to try to amend our state constitution? That is, are they likely to carry this battle back into the political arena, even though it's a much tougher hill they've got to climb?
Ray, unfortunately, I can't predict what Assemblyman Carroll or his colleagues might try to do, but I do want to try to correct a few misstatements that he's made. First of all, with respect to children, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the largest organization of pediatricians nationwide, recently released a report stating that all the studies over decades have shown that lesbians and gay men make just as fit parents as heterosexuals. There's absolutely no basis for the claim that children are somehow better off, or that recognition of same-sex marriages will be bad for children. If anything, it will protect these children. It will provide them with a secure, stable home environment that all families need.
Okay. Assemblyman McKeon, I don't want to give short shrift to your proposal because it really does introduce some new ideas because it affects heterosexuals as well as homosexuals, and it's pretty broad. I mean, do you think that we're going to have, if your bill becomes law, a whole new category of relationships?
Well, no, those relationships are already there. There are many adult siblings that live together well into their lives who will benefit by this proposal.
So siblings could be, so brother and sister could be domestic partners under your proposed legislation?
Absolutely. Sister and sister, brother and brother, without question. There are many, as I see as mayor, many older people who cohabitate, who happen to be heterosexuals, but yet they won't marry and are not designated as domestic partners. They won't marry for perhaps not wanting to lose widowers' benefits of a pension or what have you, but yet don't have any of the practical concerns that this bill would, or accoutrements, if you will, that this bill would provide.
We've heard your colleague's prediction about the Supreme Court. I'm out of time. Can you tell me, how do you think the Supreme Court will vote on this current litigation?
Well, I would think, based upon their past performance, that the litigation has an excellent chance. Notwithstanding, we're going to press forward with our legislative proposal, doing the right thing by the people in the state.
Yes, no, Adam? Supreme Court?
I can't predict, and any good lawyer, I think, shouldn't try to predict which way a case is going to come out.
Will there be a movement for a constitutional amendment?
Oh, I'd be shocked if there weren't. I mean, even if they could do it in Hawaii, they'll do it here.
Will you be an aggressive supporter of it?
Yes.
sounds like we may all be back here again. Because that's it for this edition of Due Process. We'll be back next week with another sharp look at the cutting-edge issues of law and social justice. Until then, for Sandy King and all of us here at Due Process, I'm Raymond Brown. Thanks for watching.
Struggling the same way everyone else is struggling to make a living. You're dealing and you're working at your relationship like every other couple. You're celebrating your ups and you're facing your downs, just like every other couple. And that if that is what they see, then they'll say, yeah, they should have the same civil rights. They should be allowed to get married. They're married. Let them get married. That's what we're hoping for, because we're really hoping people will see the faces, people will see the love, people will see the commitment, people will say, yeah, get married.
Maybe you're not so scary?
That's right. Just like anybody else.
Major funding for Due Process was made possible by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law. Additional funding was provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual,